Welcome back, everyone. I'm on voice isolation now because just out for a walk. So this is going to be fairly quick. I just wanted to share some of my thoughts after earnings here. We have seen so far Palantir with some of its best days in the company's history with a 42% gain so far this year, which it really is incredible given how we are so, fresh into the new year. And a 40% gain is something you would hope for, not even over a 1 year period, but over, a multiple year period, at least with traditional concepts of investing. You'd hope for at least 10% to beat the market. So to have 40% this early on really is indicative of Palantir coming into 2024 in a very good position. Obviously, we saw that with the mainstream media reaction to the call, the analysts, those that are bearish, flipping bullish, and of course, the results themselves. I just want to talk about the results quickly, not the details, but rather, just EPS and revenue. We saw those roughly met expectations, right? Non-GAAP and GAAP EPS, they hit exactly. Revenue, they came in, just marginally above, which is basically irrelevant. They've gotten very good at predicting what their revenue is going to be and hitting that. So largely, their quarterly results are not as important as some companies like Tesla, for instance, where you have no idea where production and deliveries are going to be, and as a result, where earnings are going to be. But Palantir's business, they have such a good internal handle on it that they know what the outcome is going to be from a quarter-to-quarter basis. The question is, they're not as sure on the more long term because there are many more trends that play into that. So on that point, we saw some incredible guidance on commercial. And obviously, the street wasn't expecting this. We've seen really the concern about the growth slowdown in the story, and that got, priced in from last time we were well above $20 to down to wherever we bottomed at 560, 70 or something like that. And now bouncing back. So from the call, you can really sense significant confidence from management, because you can have someone that's telling you all these great things that isn't necessarily grounded in reality, which we've seen with many public companies, which is why I posted today that what Palantir's done is remarkable, and it's very difficult for a company to actually beat so significantly on guidance. And we've seen NVIDIA do this. I've compared Palantir's, forwards looking opportunity to similar to that of NVIDIA's, and I think it's really this tailwind that, ARK Invest talks about, these trends that we want to be a part of as investors that really you can ride. And we've seen Palantir string together many incredible quarters, and that results in whatever it's been, plus 200% from the lows. And so I titled this Palantir Escape Velocity because I've always been one to still have some criticism towards Palantir, regardless of holding an investment. And that's because I think you need to have an eye to both sides of the story, right? And this is what I've heard from great investors as well, is you need to be able to articulate the bull and the bear cases in order to be successful. That no longer, that side of me, when I posted my video on expectations for this year, I was no longer as confident in the downside scenario. I felt like that concern had been priced into the market. And so I said, bear case for 2024, $20, base case 25, and bull case 30. So many great catalysts for this year when you think about S&P, which I agree with Tom Nash when he says it's priced in at this point. And then I had also mentioned AIP as a significant catalyst, which obviously is a surprise to no one, but that aspect had been difficult for Wall Street to calculate, like, where do we even factor this in? And you need Wall Street to understand your story and the different drivers and components of it in order for the stock to move, right? So you could say we have this great product, we have robo-taxis coming, we have AIP, like whatever it is. You can say the demand is insatiable, but you actually have to show it. You have to show that, right? Or no one's going to believe you. And for good reason, right? So the difference here is Palantir's growth slowdown and then the subsequent rise has caught, Wall Street and analysts off guard, and we've seen that reflected in the stock. But I think it's more than that, right? Because it's not just Wall Street that's that has an impact on the story. It's even more so internal, right? So employees, prospective employees, and this is why you hear Alex Karp talk so much about the talent, right? Because I have this opinion that, I haven't heard it elsewhere, right? So maybe someone else has it, but I really don't think even Palantir saw what they were going to do with AIP. And you hear some of that from Alex Karp, but I think they were able to tackle this opportunity so well because of their positioning, not because they knew they were going to make AIP in 2023, but because they were so prepared to do so. So I don't think it was part of the master plan. I think that what Alex Karp harps on and what the company is so focused on is having that talent, having that focus, being lean, not being burdened by a sales organization that's trying to sell last year's product, and being able to capitalize on new opportunities. And so that's what I really think going forward is so important to this company. Now that everyone knows Palantir's name, I hear it thrown in with Palantir actually driving other companies in terms of a sympathy reaction with the rest of the market, which is really incredible. Usually you see that from much bigger companies, like Palantir will move, obviously, if Google or one of the other tech companies, has a big move in earnings or something like that. But now Palantir is starting to have that impact on others because of what they signify within the industry. And so back on this idea of escape velocity, everyone knows Palantir. It seems like their recruiting is, maybe equivalent, if not surpassing the demand for their actual product, which I think is so important. And that's why talent has always been a focus and will continue to be. And when I think you have a stock price that's underperformed for an extended period of time, now it hadn't been that extended, right? It was just a year or a year and a half. I think you lose some of that momentum, right? I'm not sure. I tend to think a bit contrarian, where I would want to join a company whose stock had been down and be able to ride that back up. But I think you certainly get a lot of enthusiasm behind price moves when they're significantly to the upside. And now, Palantir's past $20, sky's the limit, right? And so that might not actually be the case, but it seems like that's the case. And so when I say escape velocity, I believe Palantir, really has blown through all the barriers with respect to recruiting, with respect to the industry knowing about them, and respect to a whole number of other categories. So that's what I mean by that. And all of that to say, could something happen? Could something go wrong? Yeah, totally. They could totally, miscalculate something or mess something up that could, derail the story a bit. But I don't foresee a possibility for them to, totally fumble what they have over the next few years. And I think that's great news, right? I think it's hard that you can say that with confidence for other stocks and investments. It's just really difficult to position yourself so well for what's ahead of you. And I think Palantir has done that masterfully. So basically, those are my thoughts, at least for now. I think the earnings results themselves for Q4 and for the full year, largely expected. That's not what the reaction is based on. It's backwards looking anyway. The results that mattered was guidance, right? And confidence. Like, that was hands down the best earnings call we've ever seen. And it makes sense, right? When you're able to beat so significantly on this is what we expect going forward, you're going to be totally confident. And it seems like the messaging is on point, the communication is on point. Alex Karp used to be very philosophical in his letters, and now it's more like very hard facts, which I'm not saying one way or the other it's better. It's like more pulling towards what's actually happening with the business and what they're accomplishing, which I think is a good thing. But it's not to say being philosophical can't put the business in the right direction. But I do want to issue a word of caution, right? Now that everyone's talking about Palantir, everyone knows about it. There is a potential that it gets overheated, right? And so, you want to be aware of that, right? I think $25 is, or whatever in that range, is a good place to be, maybe thinking it could pull back from here, right? Now, I'm not saying a long-term investor should sell or anything like that. I'm just saying if you're in a more of a short-term mindset for any reason, you do want to be aware of that, right? Because it's not going to go up 30% every week, obviously, right? And so you just want to think about, what is my strategy? You want to reflect on that. what works for me, where do I want to be, what's my mindset, that sort of thing. So I just, don't want to see anyone get hurt, that sort of thing. But congratulations to all of you, all the shareholders. I think it's very difficult, to start the year out at a 42% return. And it's really, a testament to, you got to go through the bad times to get to the good times, right? And, that happened to be the case for the past however many months. But it's, conviction. Sometimes it plays out, sometimes it doesn't. You got to discern between, was I lucky or was I right on, fundamental aspects? Because you can certainly be lucky. That's great. You just should be honest with yourself. Or did you nail the drivers? And so I've been wrong about some of the drivers for sure. But I've been able to admit that to myself and go from there. So yeah, thanks everyone for tuning in, and I'll talk to you later.